This is the Celtic Exchange Weekly. This is Tino, and tonight I'm joined by James and Paddy as we once again cover all things Celtic. James, where to start? Favourable Champions League draw, smashing our transfer record, smashing Rangers again. It's all happening. Take your pick.
It's all turned out nice. Take my pick. I mean, I suppose I've got to put them some kind of order, but I would always put Hammer and Rangers at the top of that. I mean, yesterday was just an old-fashioned chasing, wasn't it? You know, just they were never laying a glove on us the whole game. I thought we were outstanding start to finish. But yeah, add to that, you know, you've got transfer window record signings all in. Just about everything you'd have wanted in the transfer window was there. I'd say about 85-90%. A lot of players shipped out, which was excellent work from the team there. And then you had the draw for the Champions League. There's a real chance to do something there. So it's all turned out nice.
It has, and just on that, Paddy, there's been a real tension, I think it's fair to say, over the last number of weeks in Celtic world, and rightfully so. You know, we were all anxious to see, was it going to be same old from Celtic, or were we going to, for the most part, get the players in we needed? Eventually we did get them, and we'll go into that in a wee bit. But all of a sudden, between that, the Champions League draw, and the feel-good factor that's absolutely there after yesterday's result, all of a sudden everything's come up roses.
It has, and I'd mentioned earlier, it's coming down to one guy for me. I think if you look at Brendan Rodgers, what he's done for this team since he's came back in, came through quite a lot last season, came through a difficult first year back, but a lot of mitigating circumstances as well. And now you look at things where we're at just now, the football that we've been playing, the guys that have been in this team for quite a bit now, but just looking at the likes of Nicholas Kuhn and just how he's kicked on, that's when the manager's been given time with these guys. And I think that's the only bit that still angers me about our summer activity, is getting the guys in so late. Mm-hmm. I don't think that our manager will find an issue with these players, that there's a higher calibre that's arrived, in my opinion. And it's just exciting to see what we go on and do, especially with that Champions League draw as well. I think Celtic will definitely be thinking, we could get in here. We could definitely get to the top here.
They've got to be. I think myself and Asim covered the Champions League draw on Thursday night, and he then tweeted after it to say, statistically, if that's the right term, we actually do have the easiest draw. You know, the teams have been ranked, and Celtic have got such a favourable draw in those 8 games, and we'll catch that in a bit of detail. James, Paddy rightly singles out Brendan Rodgers, because for me, I think he's played a blinder in recent weeks. His priority, of course, is getting a team on the park that are playing good football, and he's absolutely ticking that box at this moment in time. But he's had so many other things to juggle. There's the ongoing politics, you know, between the manager and the board, and you'll always have those kind of wrangles. But he seems to have managed that situation very well, and I think he's ultimately had to go and convince this board and potentially Michael Nicholson to back him in certain ways, and it seems that he's got the right result.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a fantastic manager of people, both up and down. You know, he's having to work really hard with the board to convince him to spend that kind of money, but you know, we know that has positive results. You know, when we move into those brackets, you get a better player, you play better, you win more, and you can sell that player on. And you know, it takes a lot of energy from Rodgers that you shouldn't have to expend. You want him keeping his energy for coaching players and winning games, and getting, you know, they're talking now, they're going to bring in, you know, improved recruitment strategy and structural change that I've been after for quite some time.
Too late for you.
Could still have a season ticket.
Too late for you.
But you know, that's where we should be, and you know, it should be a cohesive plan where we're all working together to the same end goal, knowing what we need to do, knowing who needs to be doing what kind of thing, and hopefully that's coming now.
Paddy, we've signed Arne Engels for 11 million, smashed the transfer record as I mentioned. We've also signed Adam Ida for 8.5, potentially rising to 9.5, and all of a sudden Celtic are shopping in a new bracket. We did hover around those areas when we signed Odsonne Edouard for 9 million from PSG, but that was back in 2018. So it's taken 6 years for Celtic to get back to that level of spend. And I think, I'm never back in spending for the sake of spending, but Celtic, generally speaking, should now move into this bracket every season or so. You should be signing a guy or two in that area, because you sell so well. Celtic trade very well. Matt O'Reilly, Kieran Tierney, Jota, all these guys, big money. And I think they need to make sure they're doing the buy-in bit at an equally high level. And it's encouraging to see that they've taken those steps.
It is encouraging. I think that we've been crying out for it for an awful long time. We're even looking at the figure of Odsonne Edouard, 9 million, breaking that record six years ago, as you say. There's still 3 million more than the likes of Sutton and Hartson all those years ago. I think that's just down to Scottish football, and where it's kind of been stuck, it's kind of been left behind a little bit. But I do think that our board hopefully have finally woke up and realised that they need to start understanding the value of players coming in as well as they do for players going out, because I think that they do have an idea of what they can get. They stood their ground with Matt O'Reilly this year, and rightly so.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you are proactive and you do put them onto like new contracts. You increase that value of the player. They have been clever on that side, but it's been the other side. It's been watching them trying to get players in, watching the same old negotiation tactics that we've seen year after year, lowballing and hoping for the best. Whereas this year, I think they've decided, we need to be taken a bit more seriously as a club. It hopefully transfers onto the park. I still think there's a bit of structure to come into this club. I think there's still a lot of things that need to happen. But it's the first step in the right direction, in my opinion. Yeah,
it's good to see. Let's go back to the on-field stuff. So obviously, really enjoyable day at Celtic Park yesterday. You'd have loved it, James. But I've mentioned Arne Engels and the other exciting players that have come in, and we done a pre-match on Friday, wasn't it? The three of us, and we speculated what he might do. Might he play some of the new players? But ultimately, he made the right call to go with the tried and trusted 11 that he went with.
100%. Particularly with the way that tried and trusted group have been playing this season, they're really clicking into place. So I think the signings will be played in over the next few games, and I think one or two of them will cement a first team place, and that's just football. But certainly for yesterday, there was no way I'd be changing a single guy in that team. Yeah, it was the right move, and most of those players, if not, in fact, Kasper Schmeichel's the only one who doesn't have experience in that fixture, and he's a very safe and experienced pair of hands, so it all worked out pretty well. A couple of big saves from him, actually. Obviously, Celtic were very much in control from 10 minutes in at least, and throughout the rest of the game. But I liked the determination from him and his backline to keep that clean sheet. Really important. It means we continue to average 3 goals a game and 0 goals conceded in 4 league games so far. Myself and Miff covered the game in detail. We done the Final Whistle show yesterday. As always, that's available wherever you get your podcast. All links at thecelticexchange.com. But just to kind of round up on the game, I want to come to you both for your moment of the day, whether that was a goal, a tackle, an off-field thing, maybe a social media clip, whatever it might be. So I'll come to you first, Paddy. What's your moment of the day there?
For me, I think it's been a collective, to be honest. I know you're asking for one, but I can't just give you one.
That's okay.
The social media side of things always great in a Derby Day victory and the day after. I think we're all kind of looking forward to Super Scoreboard tonight as well.
Yeah.
But I think for me, moment of the day was just the calmness of someone like Kyogo yesterday. I just thought he was everywhere in that park. Mm-hmm. He had moments where, he could have done a little bit better through on goal. But the way he just passed that into the net, and I know Butland's nowhere near it. I understand that. It's poor positioning. But it's just still a lovely finish. And I thought that when he'd played it like that, I thought that's adventurous for that far out. You see it back, you understand why. It's the interview after with Kyogo. It's just absolutely brilliant.
I've not yet seen it. Do you know what my problem with the social media stuff? Mm-hmm. There's too much. It's brilliant. I've not got around it. I've got all these things bookmarked and saved for later, but I've not seen it.
He's basically like saying,
what's he doing over there?
What's the goalie doing to him?
What's the goalie doing to him? He said, I'd see the goalkeeper. Uh-huh. I decide I can shoot. I shoot. Goal. Superb.
Brilliant. And it's I guess another big moment from a big player, James, and he comes to life in this game. So it's a great shout, Kyogo, for the second goal. And do you know what? There was obviously a wee bit of frustration that he missed the one in the second half for his strong goal. But Kyogo Furuhashi has earned the right to try and dink the goalie there because he's got a whole range of finishes in his locker, and if he wants to try that, who are we to tell him otherwise?
He knows what he's going to do. It's the touch that leads him into it. He gets that wrong and it just makes him panic a little bit. It is a poor finish from him, but as I say, he's got enough credit in the bank, this guy.
He's been watching Larson videos and he's like, I'm going to do one of them.
I'm after you.
That is sensational. James, your own big moment from the day?
A choice of two, really. Maybe Kyogo again, but as defender, herring after whoever it was, picking the guy's pocket between him and Scales, getting the ball off him, which
Tom Lawrence
went and set up the third goal, I think.
It was.
Broke up for the third goal. But my moment is Greg Taylor's pass for Kyogo for just that goal. He takes out like 4 or 5 players, and it's the fact that he's sharp and he sees that Barron is not played it with enough conviction. He's like, I can get there before that guy. Gets in and just threads this beautiful ball. It was outstanding.
If you watch it really closely, Paddy, Taylor gets the ball flicks that big fringe out his eyes and just threads it through to Kyogo. It's great to see.
It's a great pass. I definitely agree. Aye.
And very interesting that your first 2 goals are assisted by your fullbacks. So
Yeah.
Alistair Johnson with the cutback for Maeda and Taylor with the great pass for Kyogo. There's obviously loads of moments doing the rounds. There was a huge tackle by Carter Vickers in the second half on Dessers, which has largely gone unnoticed.
Finished his game.
Thought it was great. I was delighted for Paulo Bernardo, who had a big day, and
Man of the match for me.
you seen how pleased he was after the third goal. He runs in his tracksuit at that point to go and get Callum McGregor. And then you might have seen a close-up of Arne Engels and others walking around the park, and it just zooms into Engels and he just goes, amazing. You know, he's picked
superb.
up in the moment. There's brilliant stuff there, so if you've got a spare 100 hours, go on social media and search through it all.
Meanwhile, we're still getting comparisons of it was the equal possession and equal shots on target.
Oh, believe
Doing
that if you
himself
want.
no favours, Philippe Clement, and
really
actually a more honest interview might have done him some favours just by saying, we're behind the curve here, there's work to be done, we'll continue to work as hard as we can, but at the moment, you know, we're quite a way behind. But that kind of humility doesn't seem to be in abundance across the way. Let's move on. As I say, myself and Miff covered the show, so you'll get all of that on the final whistle episode anytime you want to check it out. We've touched on the transfer window, but I'm going to just give you some of the headlines here. We spent around 31 million on incomings. We brought in 8 new players. We made around about 38 million in sales, offloading 12 players on a permanent basis. We also moved 6 out on loan. That's guys like Kwon and Tilly and others, freeing up further space in Brendan Rodgers' squad. We broke the transfer record by spending 11 million on Engels. We broke a record sale by moving O'Reilly on for a fee that could rise to 30 million. So the question is, James, despite all the noise, all the stress, all the drama, did Celtic eventually get it right this window?
I think you'd be churlish to say they didn't, you know. I think particularly that legwork to shift out so much. I mean, I can't, you know, look at my glass on, Paddy, but what's that number there? That's how much we saved in terms of weekly wages moving these guys on, and that just gives you space to go and do Engels and stuff like that. It's really important.
Almost 6.5 mil
a year.
a year.
Do you know what I mean? So if you take that weekly, that you can add that then to your weekly budget.
In terms of freeing up salaries and that sort of thing.
So I think that's great work from them there. Having the heart to go and break your transfer record, and you know, let's say twice, because either should end up at 9.5 million. So to go and do that twice, what I really liked is Peter Lawler's got a hard time at go to Love Street, but it's Smisa Stadium last week. St Mirren, and he knows at that stage he's about to go and spend £11 million on a player. And he's like, why am I getting a hard time here?
Calm down, to quote the man, but he was right.
But the thing about it all is it's timing. So they got there, but they got there by the skin of their teeth. I think they probably overpaid a wee bit for Engels and Ida, because you had to, because the selling teams knew you were in a position. So I do think Celtic need to look seriously at who is negotiating, how they're negotiating, and make changes there. But yeah, you know, like I say, it'd be churlish to not be happy with the end result.
This is the thing for me, and this is where we really need to take ourselves a bit more seriously going forward each season. We've got a really, really good opportunity here. A lot of people are talking about how next year we're going to have to qualify for the Champions League via qualifiers. We've got a solid team there ready to do that. It shouldn't be a problem. You're not going to have to play 2-3 qualifiers as like we used to have to. It's making sure that your team's ready instead of waiting to see if we can get in and then adding.
Yeah.
We need to be acting on this pretty quickly and hoping, listen, there is a bit more risk spending 9, 10, 11 million pounds in a player, especially if it doesn't work out. But we need to realise that we could be getting into Champions League this season. We could easily win 4 of these games, I'd say, comfortably. And that's 8 million straight away for that as well. We need to look at the money that we can make from this tournament. It has went up. It is beneficial to us. So we should be making sure we're in it every season.
Yeah. I think we've spent a wee bit more than we could and should have on the likes of Arne Engels and Adam Ida. I think our first bid on Engels was 6 million. And Augsburg have said, if you can nearly double that, we'll talk.
But the number was meant to be, they wanted 9. We said 6. And they said no. And we said 9. I'm duty bound as a seller to then say, well, it's whatever it is, it's not 9 anymore. It's going to be 10 or 11.
And from a fan point of view, I'll be honest, I don't really care if we've paid a couple of million too much. The money's
saved
there.
that money on Bernardo and the sales of Lowell and stuff.
Bernardo's looking a bargain at 3.5 million, by the way. But here's a follow-up question, Paddy. I asked James, did we eventually get it right this window? Unpopular follow-up question. Do the board and Michael Nicholson and maybe even Peter Lawwell deserve huge credit for what was achieved? When you look at the fact that ins, outs, freeing up wages, giving Brendan Rodgers that tighter squad to work with, on paper it looks spot on, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you can look at it that way, Tino, but the other question I would ask is, why did it end up in that shape?
I would agree.
from last
The
year.
fact that it was so bloated. So as I say, between permanent offloading, 12 players and 6 on loan, 18 guys that were surplus to requirements. That's a mad number.
And we had to do the same, effectively, the COVID season, the amount of players we lost that year. We brought in so much to try and kind of stop the bleeding, effectively, to make sure that Ange had a bit of a fight for the first season. But again, that's what happens when you don't have a structure in place. That's what happens when you let things run on too much longer than they should. We should be quick enough and recognise the right points to sell our players, sell our assets. I think fans now realise that we can't grow attached to players as much as we used to be able to.
Yeah.
It has been nice seeing a lot of our players into their 4th season. I have to say that has been good. But there comes a point, and you look at the starting lineup in comparison to Angie's starting lineup when he got his first settled team. That's where we need to be more clever and not have too much deadwood hanging about, not too many project players hanging about. So, yes, it's been a brilliant, strong ending to that transfer window. It has been some really, really good business in terms of players outgoing. We're in the black, considering the players that we've signed as well.
Yeah.
However, we need to be more proactive in these situations.
I would agree, and I think everyone would agree with that. And hopefully, starting with the January window coming and beyond, we're in a far more proactive situation. I done a post-transfer window show, a live show with Hamish on Friday night. Really good show, loads of really good comments, thousands watching the live. It was great stuff, really good to see, and Hamish is always a great contributor. It was something like 8:30 in the morning Melbourne time for him, and he'd already done 2 shows prior, so fair play to Hamish, and thanks to him for doing so. I asked the question, and I was being a bit flippant, but and I got some interesting responses in the comments, but you mentioned Peter Lawwell. He gets so much grief, and people will like or dislike Peter Lawwell for a variety of reasons, and that's fine. That's the world of football, and he'll know that himself. And I'd say he's developed pretty thick skin over the years. But if he was the guy, James, getting blamed for all that lack of activity and all the stress, as I mentioned, likewise, are the same folks going to come out and say, well, actually, it's been great, we've pretty much broke the transfer window twice, so fair play to Lawwell? Or have people just become so entrenched in their position against them that we'll never see that?
It's not even really that. It's just a bogeyman, People like a bogeyman. If something goes wrong, I can point to that guy and say, well, you're the problem. So, yeah, they probably don't then spin around and give him credit when he gets something right. But it wasn't Peter Lawwell. I want to be clear in my position on that. He's not executive at Celtic.
Yeah.
It's Michael Nicholson, it's Chris Mackay, and those guys kind of thing. Of course, Peter Lawwell has huge influence at Celtic, but he's not anywhere near signing off £11 million signings and scouting players and negotiating deals and stuff. So, no, he's got his role at Celtic, and if he keeps doing his ambassadorial stuff or wider strategy stuff like FSR, he was heavily involved in that, which is killing Rangers, absolutely killing them. So more
Again,
of that.
some might say.
Yeah, well, more of that, Peter.
I think you're spot on. You could be the board apologist this week. I've been doing it the last few weeks, and I've been getting
look forward to the comments.
reminded of that. More a kind of fun question as we kind of start to wrap up this opening section. Who are you most excited to see, Paddy, of the new 8 signings? And on the opposite side, who are you most disappointed to have lost?
For me, I think glimpses of Big Arne yesterday. He looked a player. I think his movement off the ball seems pretty quick, and seems a lot bigger than I was expecting as well. But
he was nearly an goal.
I know.
Right at the start.
My God, Barry Robson. I'm thinking back to the last player to do that in a debut. No, I thought that he looked comfortable. Obviously, got a feel for the ball. Couple of passes back the way. You're not going to get to do that too long at Celtic Park. But no, I'm really excited to see what he can bring. I think he's going to be really, really big for us in Europe. But I have to say, he's got to wait. He's got to wait because Paulo Bernardo was outstanding yesterday.
Yeah. They all do, and I would say Liam Scales was good yesterday, so maybe Trusty doesn't go right in. And I'd say Greg Taylor was decent until he flagged a bit towards the end, but had a decent game overall.
He was just fatigued.
So does Baye go right in? The international break is going to be interesting because were we right into another game, maybe Rodgers would keep the same 11. Now he's got some calls to make and he'll spend time with some guys. Engels will go away with Belgium, which is great for him and some others, but look, McCowan and Baye and stuff should be around for him to work with, so we'll see how that goes.
I would say with Scales, outstanding defensively. I still think that the passing's not there, and I think that our manager's going to be cutthroat, guys. I think Trusty will come in.
He's got to be. Arne Engels, nobody will argue with that, Paddy, in terms of we're all excited to see him, but in terms of guys that have gone the other way, who are you disappointed to lose?
I think it's easy. Matt O'Reilly, of course. I think an incredible player, but what is nice about it, as I said, I think I've got to the point now as a Celtic fan, I'm not getting too close to any of these guys anymore. Ange got me, Brendan got me first time round, and I'm looking at players that we've seen leave as well. I think that it's thank you for your service and good luck in the rest of your career with these guys now. And he was an incredible player, Matt O'Reilly, but on evidence of what I seen yesterday and on evidence of what we're going to see with this new setup, I'm confident that we will move into a new level of what we're providing in the midfield.
Yeah, you can see that Ange one still cuts some
Oh,
deep.
smarts.
Still hurts. What about yourself, James? Who are you most excited about, and likewise, who are you disappointed to lose?
I think the two boys coming in and giving us options at left centre half and left back, that has to be pretty exciting because they've been the weakest areas in the team, over the last 2-3 years. As much as those two boys played brilliantly yesterday in Taylor and Scales, I think we do need to beef that up, particularly for Europe. But the one I'm actually really looking forward to is more from a sentimental reasons. Luke McCowan, just doing what all of us have ever wanted to do since we were 4 or 5 years old. You seen him coming out of the tunnel and he was just buzzing. This is all right, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then coming on, so he's you said in the post match yesterday, he's talking out for Dundee at training on Thursday, and by Sunday he's coming on against Rangers as a Celtic fan, outstanding, and he's not looking out of place.
No,
it's not like he's coming on. You're going, oh wait a minute, you're just going to be a filler. You're just handy for the Champions League rota and all that stuff. It's not. He's got talent.
Yeah.
I think it's a really smart signing. I really like Tawata. I was sad to see him go, so I suppose that'll answer your question there. Yeah. But if you are going to move for the same money, move him for $1 million, sign him for $1 million, and you can add him to your Champions League roster and you can't add Tawata, it's just a really smart, common sense decision. So I'm looking forward to see what the boy can do.
Likewise, I'm excited. I'm excited for him, as you say. You've seen the pictures of him walking out the tunnel. There was footage of, I think it was his granddads or his uncles or something watching at home.
Brilliant.
Top stuff.
Have you seen the comment from the paper apparently about
it's coming up?
Oh, it's coming up. Right. I'm not saying anymore.
It's spot on. Okay. No spoilers, Paddy.
Okay,
who am I most excited to see? Is that what you said there?
I thought you just said, who am I?
It's got to be Engels. He smashed the transfer record, and I'm sure it's for good reason. I thought he was very tidy yesterday. I don't know if he gave it away once. He was just kept possession, kept it ticking along, made a professional foul when he had to do so, and that's part of the game. Took his booking. So very much that. And who I'm most disappointed to lose. And I've not.
Oh dear.
I've not yet. Can I come to terms?
Managed to get him on a show.
And I'll still get him in.
My God.
He'll feature on all shows for
how many shows have we, weekly shows have we done? And I think he's been mentioning everyone.
When players leave, they kind of give it a couple of days and then they send the big social media post, guys, it's with a heavy heart and all that stuff. I'll do one of them. So it's for Mikey Johnson, of course. It just wasn't to be for Mikey. Talented boy. I was really keen to see Mikey succeed because he was an academy kid and folks were so excited about him, but it didn't work out. Whether it was a mentality thing, he got unlucky with injuries, I don't know, but it was, the writing was on the wall for some time, and I'm disappointed to see him go, and very genuinely wish him all the best. He's gone to West Brom, Paddy. Did he dig for that deal in Celtic an extra 500 grand for it or something as well?
Or an extra Todd Cantwell.
One extra Todd Cantwell. So good luck to Mikey, good luck to all the guys actually.
Speaking of Todd Cantwell, I don't even know if this is true or not, but it looks like he posted yesterday, you don't know what you've got till it's gone.
I think he has.
Saying, I would have beat Celtic.
He is some boy, man.
Yeah.
Some boy.
He's different, remember?
He certainly is. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll crack on with this week's listeners' questions. Welcome back, folks. In recent weeks, we've been encouraging you to send us your questions for us to discuss here on the show, and I'll tell you at the end of this section how you can do so ahead of next week's episode. But in the meantime, we'll kick off this week with a question regarding our captain, which comes from Mazar Yusuf, who's a good friend of the show.
Hi, Tino. Just wanted to make the following point. I remember after the first derby last season at Celtic Park, Brendan Rodgers had implied in regards to Clement that he is another manager that he has seen off, and that every single time Rangers were coming, he batted them all away. Could the same thing be said for Callum McGregor too? Every derby game, the lead up from the media and Rangers fans' media is you need to stop Celtic's midfield, you need to stop Callum McGregor from playing, you need to stop Callum McGregor from dictating the play. But every single time, no matter who they put on him, your Cantwell, Sterling, Barron, Diamonde, Lundstrom, Aribo, Ramsey, the list goes on, he's seen them all off. So my question is kind of twofold in regards to the captain. One, outside of the Celtic bubble, why is Callum McGregor so underrated / underappreciated, both on a domestic and international front? And secondly, What can we as a club do in order for us to better plan for McGregor's eventual departure from the team? Love what you guys are doing. Keep up the great work. Thanks.
And likewise, great question from us, Arne. A couple of really good points within there in terms of the guys who have been tasked with dealing with Callum McGregor. And I suppose Connor Barnes, the latest guy that's got that unenviable task, Paddy. But he's bossed this fixture for some time now and continues to do so. But to get into Mazar's question, twofold as he says, does Callum McGregor get enough credit for what he brings to the party? And up until recently it was, for his club and his country. And secondly, what is the succession plan for when he eventually calls time on his Celtic career? He turned 31 in the summer, so I'll come at you first.
Yeah, I think for me, the first part of that question, does he get enough recognition? I actually do. I think he does. I think he's a well-respected player in the league and with the Scottish national team. I think when you see the likes of social media, there is a lot of comments saying that he's the one dragging Scotland down. I think you have to look at the tactics of the manager for that one, in my opinion. I think back to some of the games in Euro 2021. He looked after that midfield more than anything. I think to the game against England, he bossed it. He gave Billy Gilmour so much free space because he was doing a lot of the running for him. And I think Billy Gilmour's a really talented player. But there will always be this competition with it being the national setup that he's no better than this guy or he's no better than that guy. He slows us down. He does this. He does that. The best way to look at that is just envy. It's just envy. This guy has dominated this league. He's won everything. He could play at any team in the world. For me, I think he's an incredible footballer, and I still think he's the best player in the league.
Brilliant. You nearly fell into the Gilly Bilmore trap that
I did,
Myth has set for us in recent times.
So close.
Napoli's Gilly Bilmore, no less. But yeah, absolutely. Spot on, Paddy, in terms of Calmac and what he's brought. And I'd be inclined to agree, James. I think he does get the credit, certainly from people in the Celtic world. But there are some envious voices outside in Scotland. They don't seem to give him that credit he definitely deserves.
Yeah, but he certainly won't care.
No.
And I think when we go into Europe and we're playing high caliber teams, you see the attention they give McGregor, and that's a sign of respect in itself, and the reason they're able to do that and Rangers aren't is because they're just better players. Simple as that. So I really do. I think he does get respect from his peers, but it's his peers, not what other people think are his peers, As for succession planning, that is a tough job. If McCowan was 22, 23 and you were going to find a kind of defensive midfield role in his locker, but bear in mind he used to be a winger, so he's more of an attack-minded player, then that'd be great. But I don't think the solution is in the room at the moment. I think it's yet to come.
Yeah, a couple of things at play there. McCowan's name has been mentioned already, and it's
too old though.
I was going to say it's far too early in his Celtic career, first of all, to be having that conversation. We don't know how he'll adapt. Hopefully he does, and the signs are there that he will. But he's 26.
Is that too old?
To be Celtic, McGregor's going to play for another 4 years. He's fit as a fiddle.
Are you
so
going
he'll be 30 then?
I know, but are you going to get a Callum McGregor to come and play? Are you going to get someone that's going to match that from an early age and stay with Celtic? Because for me, you could even look at the likes of Bernardo, Hatate. They're all players that are probably going to move on.
Definitely.
So I think McCowan is someone that could look at that as I could get in here.
Keeping in mind that Callum McGregor himself became captain at 27, 28.
But McCowan will be 30 by the time McGregor's ready to hang up his boots.
But in 3 years' time, is Callum McGregor still a first team regular? That is my question. So I was going to ask, he's performing at a top level just now. He's in great form. He looks after his body. Question is, how many years do you see him carrying on at that level?
Now that he's dropped the international stuff, you can see it. He's got an extra wee bit in him.
I mean, he's not had any international stuff to do.
No, but it's just he's only got one focus, playing for Celtic and winning for Celtic. So I think that'll be the making of the next 3-4 years of his career. You saw it with Bruni and saw it in the past,
Yeah. You think he starts in 4 years' time?
3.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I think, again, if the same setup's in place, the same manager's in place, I think we look at Scott Brown as a good example. Brown had everything in the locker, but eventually the legs started to go, and he was very, very quick to say, I need to move on here. On you go. Sorry,
that's my one concern is the amount of football that McGregor has played. He's the most played footballer in the world for 2 years in a row. So the body does start to take the toll of that in the end.
We've seen it. We've seen some of the injuries he's had over the last couple of years.
This is where, again, the signing of Luke McCowan, away from the captaincy question, the signing of Luke McCowan makes a lot of sense because you can give Callum McGregor a genuine break, and it looks like you've got someone in that won't be a huge downgrade. As it, Callum McGregor set at such a high level, such a high standard. Anyone that comes in is going to be a bit below that. That's okay. but it would allow him maybe to kind of sit out a couple of domestic games, keep him really fresh for these 8 huge European games. And all of a sudden, whether it's McCowan or Bernardo or Engels, alongside
Is Engels the more natural 6?
It sounds like it, according to Derek Ray.
He can play 6 and 10 kind of thing, but is McCowan really a 6?
Time will tell.
I think for me, we're talking about McCowan there. Let's let this guy get in the door. And I think, like,
look, you've played 20 minutes for Celtic. Fancy being captain.
There's the man. No, I just think that we've also got to see, can he keep up with the pace of what we're playing at? I think the comments from Luke McCowan himself talking about, you're going to have to learn how to play possession football, and that makes a lot of sense. They're a team that's quite frantic. Both teams have a lot of possession.
It's a different game.
I think to kind of think that we're going to lose Callum McGregor and who comes in, it could be a totally different setup of football and how we play as well. But this role that Scott Brown has played and Callum McGregor is now playing has been pivotal. But one thing for certain that's definitely changed, we touched on it at the beginning of the season, especially like when we were looking at some of the pre-season games. The two in front of him, the two midfielders in front of him, have really started getting into the box more. And what you're seeing with obviously the likes of Johnston and Taylor coming in and supporting him in the midfield, McGregor is getting to the edge of the box an awful lot more, and he's been vital with it. He's been clinical. 3
league goals in the opening 4 games. He scored against Hibs, St Mirren, and against Rangers there at the weekend, and that's a very welcome return to his game. It was something that was in the early part of Callum McGregor's Celtic career. It went away for a few years, and it seems to be back. That's got to be a big plus. The other stat that we'll be well aware of, that he is one of Celtic's most decorated players. Jamesy Forrest is very high up there, and we'll get to him later on in the piece. But Callum McGregor, I meant to double check, but he's tied with Bruni, I think, on something like 22 trophies.
It's amazing.
Jamesy's on 24, Bobby Lennox on 25. Billy McNeil's between them, I think. It's incredible stuff, and he's been such a good servant to Celtic, and I think we agree here, particularly with the international stuff. He could be around for a few more years to come. He signed that new deal. He seems as comfortable as he could be in that position, and he leads from the front. You heard Nicholas Kuhn and him were interviewed after the game, and they asked Kuhn, what does this guy bring to the party in terms of his leadership? He's the guy, he's first on the training ground, he trains harder than anybody, and he's leading by example, and it's great to see. Last quote, the quote you mentioned, Paddy, so he was talking about Luke McCowan. So Callum McGregor on Luke McCowan, he says, when you come into a game like that, it's always good to have your mates around you and just look after them and the new guys and help them settle in. I just said to him, go and play, you've got massive quality, just go and run about, I'll be with you, so let's just go. James, that's proper leadership, and it's great to hear, isn't it?
Yeah, because you've seen so many players come into that fixture and just not impact anything at all. They just get taken by the occasion, whatever it may be. So McGregor's there just to first and foremost reassure him, but also tell him he deserves to be there.
Yeah.
You've got that talent. You deserve to be on this pitch. So go and express yourself. Outstanding.
It's a great boost to McCowan, but we've heard this quote on that occasion. You could bet that Callum McGregor's done that way a Nicholas Kuhn or a Paulo Bernardo or an Adam Ida. He's been there, done that, and then some, and he'll give these guys the confidence they need to kick in. So it's brilliant to see. Great question from Azar, and thanks to him for sending that one in. Let's go to our next question, question 2 for the week. This comes from Stephen Ray, who asks a question about Celtic's finances at this moment in time.
Hello, Tino and the guys. My name's Stephen Ray, a long-time listener. So my point and question is around the finances of Celtic. So the club, as we stand, is sitting between 80 and 100 million in the bank, which is really unusual for football clubs to sit with that kind of cash on hand. There's 2 things that football clubs can buy, and that's players and spend money on infrastructure. The plans for the hotel and museum, which was approved in 2018, were cancelled in 2022. We have no plans for a new main stand, and Barrowfield is pretty much paid for. It's a £21 million project. So my question is really, what are Celtic planning to do with all that money, if not spend it on players? Anyway, have a good show, guys. Thanks.
So good information from Stephen first and foremost, and again, another good question, James. He sent that to us towards the end of last week. Since then, we've made a couple of big additions in the shape of Arne Engels, 11 million, and Austin Trusty at 6 million. But that still leaves a lot of cash swimming around. So the question would be, any ideas what could and should be done with that? And a few suggestions here. The museum absolutely should be happening. A modern facility, digital, interactive, all these kind of things must happen. I know for a fact there is so much memorabilia at Celtic Park that isn't on display because there's nowhere to display it. You've got the trophy room, which I'm sure we've all gone through on tours and stuff at different times, which has a few things, and there's a couple of shirts and different displays.
Have we got a bike?
We don't have a bike yet. We'll get one of those. But there's so much that people aren't seeing. Old shirts and trophies and medals and, you know, keepsakes and things that we're just not getting eyes on. And the museum, I was actually, as part of the Battle to Save Celtic stuff, looking at some different things, some research, amongst which was a Celtic view from the time where Celtic were potentially going to move to Cambuslang, you know, the whole failed project there. And they were saying, and within this, there'll be a new museum to, you know, show off all the club's wares. That was in 1992-3 when they were making those plans. We're now 30 and a bit years down the track, and we still don't have a proper museum. That doesn't make any sense. And I was quite excited by the museum plans at the time. You've seen some kind of visuals in the hotel and all that stuff. And as Stephen said, that plan was scrapped. That just disappeared in 2022. And I don't know why. I don't know why Celtic don't pick that back up. So I've gone off track there. The ideas for what we could do. A museum, absolutely. Modernisation of the South Stand, yes, it looks unfit for purpose in certain areas. Increased capacity is also a question doing the rounds. If it's feasible, do we take it from 60 to 70 to 75? Don't know. Or any other things. What do you think in general?
My dad said, was talking the way in, he said, if they made it 70,000, it'd be even harder to get out. He's complaining about the traffic doesn't exist yet.
That's a good point.
But yeah,
the glass is half empty.
Very
good point.
I think all three, really. I mean, the hotels thing's kind of funny. Like, I don't really think that is where a hotel naturally fits. I mean, it's near the motorway, so you get kind of rep travellers and all that, maybe, but they want to stay at a Celtic hotel. You outsource that anyway to Holiday Inn or whoever. You just build a building and then you lease it to them and they take care of that. You house your museum in there. But I think we're at a point now where they know how long the season ticket waiting list is and how solid it is. So they can go and expand the stadium, because one of the questions my dad asked me is, what can Rangers do to get close to us? I said, only if they knock down their stadium and rebuild it. But if we then go now and move to 70,000 seats, it's over. You know, you'll just be dominant forever. So why not go and do it? I don't even think it's that much a gamble. And it's not a cash purchase. You can maybe, you know, keep your mortgage down by paying a cash lump sum, but you're not having to spend all that money. You take a loan out for that. That's common sense. Maybe less these days with rates, but if you can get a good rate, you just, you know, finance that and build it. I think it should be done. There's a bit of modernisation required across the stadium. Yeah. So that's where I'd put the lion's share of any infrastructure spend is stadia.
Yeah. But I was thinking, within any sort of new museum, you know, a kind of modern build, maybe somewhere near the current ticket office porta cabins, which in themselves could do a bit of upgrading. You could also have some sort of fan experience area for pre-match. Pre-match, there's nothing to do at Celtic. You know, I think Celtic over the years have tried to encourage folk to arrive early, you know, come to the Celtic Way and there'll be, I don't know, balloons and face paint or something, bits and bobs, but nothing that you're really going to go for. So generally speaking, you turn up 10, 15 minutes before the game for the most part. But if you had like somewhere that you could go with a couple of decent food and drink options and a bit of entertainment and some Celtic stuff on the big screens and a nice modern facility, you would go up at 1:30 for a 3 o'clock kick-off or 1 o'clock. So, and they would make money off you then. So it just seems to make sense. You would just build an extra place for people to come and give you money and to enjoy more Celtic experience, and something like that would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it?
It would. I think, going back to your dad's point as well about, you know, more traffic coming on the roads, I think one of the best stadium experiences I ever witnessed was Borussia Mönchengladbach, and what they had done. We all get the train to the game, but basically the train takes you to an area just not far from the stadium that's got parking facilities that take you straight onto the autobahn, but all the drivers of those cars then come onto a bus. There's lines and lines of buses that just take you up to the stadium. It just drops off, pulls away, goes and picks up the next crowd. There's about 15 or 20 of them constantly just doing a loop. So there's no traffic in and around the stadium. It's family friendly. There's park benches everywhere. There's beer everywhere.
They've got balloons.
They've got balloons and face painters. But the whole setup is brilliant. Now, during the winter, changes a little bit, of course. But the idea is that they want that same thing as well. They want fans in and around the stadium before the game. It can drum up merchandise. It can drum up the sale of merchandise. It can drum up. They can make plenty from food and beverage. Yeah. there is areas in Glasgow you could kind of look at that, and then that's what I'm saying, it starts to eradicate the idea of people parking in and around the stadium. And I think the council are just about to confirm there's going to be more parking restrictions around Celtic Park as well, whilst not announcing any transport updates, as we were kind of speaking about last week. It is a shambles. Could have taken me 3 hours to get home for one of the games the other week there on a Sunday. Obviously the strikes with ScotRail, with it being another game on a Sunday, you were also having the issues with people, with works on the line. When we arrived down at Dalmarnock Station, the guy was saying the next train's not for an hour and 15 minutes. So
After the game?
After the game, 5 minutes after the game. So people start walking into town, obviously in the pouring rain. There needs to be more done for that fan experience, and I think that's where that money should come into as well. Increasing the stadium, I think that's going to happen. I do. I've got an idea just in the sense of them doing that census effectively at the end of the season. They know what people are crying out for. As I say, they're looking at the money they're going to start making from the Champions League. A bit more coming in. Player sales have been really, really good this year. I'm pretty sure that will continue if we keep signing right. I think you push the button now.
All of these things that we're speaking of are, for me, they're investments. They're things that will pay for themselves over time and then make profit. So it's not like you're saying, just stick 20 million on something that you won't see the returns from or whatever. These are smart things, and smarter people than us will know how to do these things. You know, there's people that Celtic can outsource this to and say, build a hotel, build a museum, help us with infrastructure. And I do think they need to work closer with the council, and there needs to be some more joined up thinking, because 60,000 every other week at Celtic Park, plus the big European nights, and Scottish football in general, brings a lot to the Scottish economy.
It's billions.
But Scottish football fans are so poorly catered for, and it would just take a wee bit, almost, I'm simplifying it to an extent, but just a bit more common sense and a bit of joined up thinking would go a long way.
Yeah, it's a bit wacky, but my one was always close the Gallagate. You know, if you want to travel, go London Road, Duke Street, and then the Gallagate's just shuttle buses in and out of town, You maybe close London Road because the retail park's in the Gallagate, but something like that. You know, we were in Germany, I think it was
Leipzig,
and you come out and you're just whisked into town, which means you're going to spend more money in the bars, which means you're not in and around the stadium where people live and stuff, so they've got their kind of their area back and all that. So that's kind of fairly common sense. But just also treat it as, you know, with a bit of respect, because they put, I think it's £1.8 billion is what football fans put into the Scottish economy, and you're treated like that, you know?
Yeah.
In terms of what Celtic are doing in terms of spending this money, it's they need to get it out the bank and working, because if they don't, shareholders should be pressuring Celtic to say, see, if you're not going to spend that, I'll take a dividend, because it should not be sitting in the bank. So that if Celtic haven't started making plans for spending that money, at the next AGM that's going to happen. Shareholders will be saying, well, just give me a dividend then.
Yeah, it's there to be spent, and I suppose that takes us back to Stephen's question. You know, we're not a bank. There's no point in keeping money swimming around for vanity's sake and saying, you see my latest bank statement looks great. That's fine, but we're there to either buy players or develop the club, develop the infrastructure, and that's Stephen's main point. Last question on it, Paddy. Do Celtic have to an extent though, keep some cash back for rainy day stuff? As you mentioned, we're back to playing qualifiers for Champions League, so you can't bank on that definitely coming into the accounts every season. Do we need to keep a certain amount back as a buffer?
Well, this is where it's risk and reward, isn't it? I think that we get the playing squad right. As I say, you go back 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago, and as I say, we're kind of qualifiers with near Beaton centre half, and you've got 4 or 5 players waiting in the wings that we might sign if we qualify for the Champions League. Those days we need to move away from it. I do get it. We're up against a really poorly run league as well. I think no doubt there'll be cries that the league structure will change just to try and.
Heard it already.
I've heard it. No doubt after obviously that what's happened at the weekend, people will be crying out. This is Groundhog Day.
Yeah, was Doncaster not on BBC Sports Scotland at the weekend saying
going against that?
Yeah, saying we can't expand the league for various reasons.
But it shows he's getting pressure to look at it.
Of course he is. I think it's pretty difficult on that side. I think we need to look at the continuous front of where is the money coming in from. But I've also, again, we've really forget that we've got that option possibly coming down the line of the European Super League. And I think a lot of teams will wait to see how the Champions League plays out. but I don't think we'll be too far off that coming in. I really don't think there's anything that can stop that now. And I do think that Celtic and Rangers will be included in that.
Yeah, let's see how that all plays out. But another good question from Stephen. Thanks to him and to Mazar for their questions this week. If you want us to cover your question on next week's show, then it couldn't be easier. Just visit our website at thecelticexchange.com. You'll see a button on the bottom right corner that says leave voicemail. Click that, record your question, and we could be featuring you in the show this time next week. Let's take another short break. When we come back, we'll do this week's Mystery Goal Scorer, and we'll also take a glance at what we can expect in this brand new Champions League format. Welcome back, folks. We're going to begin this final section of this week's show, as always, with our Name the Goal Scorer feature. But before I forget, I want to give a shout out to two fellas I met yesterday, Chris Clark and David Quayle, two really good guys, big Celtic fans. I met them out and about after the game, so shout out to them. Hope they had as good a Sunday as we did, and thanks for the support of the show. In terms of Name the Goal Scorer, the rules for anyone who doesn't yet know, dead simple. We'll play a clip from a notable Celtic goal, but the goal scorer's name will be beeped out from the commentary, and all you have to do is name the goal scorer in question. Before we kick on with this week's one, let's reveal the answer by playing last week's clip in full.
Well, there's still danger. What's the goalie doing, Tom? What's the goalie doing? Dembele gets Celtic back on terms.
So, James, the question remains, what was the goalie doing?
Nothing good. Nothing good for Rangers.
And the answer, as we heard, of course, was Moussa Dembele. So the game in question there was at Ibrox on the 11th of March 2018, a 3-2 win for Celtic that included goals from Moussa Dembele, Tom Rogic and Odsonne Edouard. Some say, Paddy, that was a game that changed the away allocation in this fixture, but who knows for sure. Your thoughts on Moussa Dembele? He was at it again yesterday. He was tweeting out after the game.
He always does.
And he generally plays that game. Your thoughts on his time at Celtic?
I thought he was just... I think he is the most natural striker we've had since Larsson. You know, people say Kyogo and various others. I think Dembele had it all. He absolutely had it all. So it was disappointing the way it ended up.
Him and Brendan's no pals.
No, they're no. Brendan was a wee bit naughty on that one, I believe. But that's football, John. So, you know, yeah, loved him. Great striker. Had it all. You know, left foot, right foot headers, all that stuff. Could handle himself as well. You know, could handle the physical aspect of the game. But just, you know, time moves on.
Yeah, it sure does. Paddy, your thoughts on the Moose?
Loved him. Absolutely brilliant player, and yeah, just gave us some really, really good memories. I forget his game against Rangers, the hat-trick, just outstanding. Just a really, really good player, and one of those guys where we were kind of in and out Champions League at the time, and we were seeing him in some games and he just looked at that level, and a lot of our players weren't up there with him yet, and I could see that frustration in him. I do always think he knew a couple of seasons here, and I'll see what's going on, and I just wish him all the best. I think a shame that he's playing in Saudi Arabia.
It is a shame, isn't it? A couple of big goals for Celtic against Man City that I remember, Champions League wise. Leon are a big enough club and they were playing at that level, and I know he scored to put, was it Man U, a quarter-final Champions League or something at one point, and he...
In the semi? No, the quarter-final.
I thought he may have kicked on at that point, and it is a wee bit... And he had some heart trouble, didn't he?
I think that's the
issue. He went on loan to Atletico Madrid and stuff, so who knows, maybe he just thought he had to cash in, you know, while he's still young and fit and able to play. But good luck to Moussa Dembele, and as I say, he always keeps an eye out for what Celtic are doing. Okay, let's take a listen to this week's Mystery Goal Scorer. Let's play the clip.
And they've really given their fans plenty to cheer about tonight. Certainly in post-match analysis you can look at that Aberdeen defence, but Celtic are really going about their job here. Goal difference could be crucial. Here's the new boy coming through. Oh, he's done it! He's scored! Scores for Celtic. It's 5 goals to 0 here at Parkhead. 75 minutes gone.
Some knowing nods there from both of you lads. I thought, am I making them too easy? Do you know what?
We're just very good.
That's true, of course. You're both excellent. But I think part of the fun of this feature is you just get to relive some Celtic, Celtic moments.
Was that John Brown commentating?
No, that was Jerry McNee.
Oh, McNee, of course, aye.
I'll not ask you to say it then. I think you both know the answer, so we'll not beep it out. And I'm hoping folks enjoy that clip. It was it blew BBC Radio 5 Live off the air at the time. There was a lot of talk about that goal. A guy that should have arrived at Celtic much sooner, but some SFA wizardry put the brakes on that. But I'll not say no more.
Of course, Brown was part of it. Joel Brown.
In terms of what?
He was Celtic administration at the time. You know, he wouldn't be commentating by then.
No. Yeah, around about those times. So I think you guys know it. But as always, we'll reveal the answer in next week's show, and we'll also share the clip on socials for anyone who wants to have a go there. As we head towards the end of the recording, I want to talk about that Champions League draw. I'm just going to read out, obviously the fixtures were confirmed on Saturday morning. Paddy, you had a dilemma. You were Oasis tickets here, Celtic tickets here.
Anxiety through the roof.
Try to book all things. I don't know if you ended up with any.
I'm sorted for one. Not Oasis, sadly.
So just very quickly, I'll run through the 8 games. Coming up in a couple of weeks' time, Wednesday, September 18th, we're at home to Slovan Bratislava. October 1st, we're away to Dortmund. October 23rd, we're away to Atalanta. November the 5th, at home to Leipzig. November 27th, at home to Bruges. December 10th, away to Dynamo Zagreb. January 22nd, so obviously it falls now into the new year. January 22nd, we're at home to Young Boys of Bern. And we round off the group match day 8, and all games are played at the same time on match day 8, I believe. Wednesday, January 29th. We're down in Birmingham to take on Villa, which in itself will be a really exciting tie. James, your initial response to the draw, doable?
Extremely doable. You know, over the years, we've never caught a good draw. There's maybe one a couple of years ago. We should maybe have done more in Europe, it maybe was. But typically, the draws we get are just, if it's, you know, our pot 4 team is somebody that's just spent 50 million on a 25-year-old striker or something. That was always our luck. But this looks very doable, you know. As, you know, Asim posted, he's done the numbers on it, and you know, he couldn't read everything into that, but it shows you that it is the easiest route we could have. If you handpick it yourself, that's what you're going to get. So, you know, I think we've got 2 away games first and then a home game, something like that.
Home to Bratislava, away to Dortmund.
Away to Dortmund, right? So you can get points on the board early doors.
Just take care of Dortmund. 6 points, please.
Champions League finalists last year. Aye.
So there's a bit of that, and you've got like the Europa semi-finalists and all these kind of things. So
Europa League winners, Atalanta.
Aye. There's no mugs and there's tough games. People are kind of writing off Bruges. I think that's a really tough game. They've been over the course and distance in the Champions League for a long time now, so they'll be looking to come to Parkhead and get points.
I think it's okay to say that Celtic haven't earned the right to look down on Aussies at anybody, and I don't think that's what we're doing, but I just think being real about it, you see these teams and you think these are at least games we can compete in, Paddy.
Yeah. You've seen Leo's draw. I was actually watching Leo, their qualifier last week. So they're in the same pot as us, and we could have got their draw, just luck of the draw kind of thing. It's horrendous.
Yeah. And that's this new format, Paddy. That's what it does. What does success look like for Celtic based on that draw? Is it, again, I know I'm not preempting things too much based on our previous European record, but we've got to be targeting at least a place in that playoff round, haven't we?
Oh, absolutely. We've been talking on this show, like we're not far off a team that can really go that extra bit in Europe. We had some close encounters last season. I think we should have done the job against Lazio, and I definitely think that we were in with a shout to beat Atletico as well. We looked very unsettled when we played the first game against Feyenoord, and this is where I go back and say that we should have our players in, give them some time. It didn't materialise that game. And then we look at the game over in Atletico. I'm not saying it wouldn't have been 6-0, but what I'm saying is that red card totally changed the game altogether.
And I don't think that red card applies today.
No, I totally agree. For me, it's playoffs as a minimum here, and I think that's what a manager sees as well. And actually, if you look at the new guys that are going to come in, I think what we need to be as a football club going into this run of fixtures is a lot more arrogant.
Yeah,
I really do. I think we really need to have a bit of a swagger about ourselves and have that self-belief and just go for it. And every game, I tell you what, like Dortmund probably will beat us, right? I'm not going to beat about there. Atalanta, we could go for the draw there. We could go for the draw. Leipzig, I think we could beat them. They've lost some big players over the last seasons, but they've retained. They managed to get Xavi Simons back again this season, who's a very talented player. But I think the rest, we should feel that we could go and win those games.
No doubt about that. And I think Paddy's right, Jamie. You've got to back yourself, and you've got to an extent, be aggressive, be ambitious, and see where it takes you.
Absolutely. You know, and I don't think Brendan Rodgers likes that. And he's certainly instilling that into his players. And now we've ended up, you know, getting the board to back that. So, you know, by hook or by crook, we got them to get there. So, it's just the way we're playing football and the slickness and the cohesion in that team, you know, that's got to take you far. The new guys getting settled in can only make that better. So I think you're totally right. That's the attitude we should be taking. Just a wee bit of swagger.
Spot on, and it's not to be confused with arrogance. As I say, we've not earned that right.
I did say arrogance, but
Don't confuse arrogance with arrogance.
That's correct.
Can't do that, Tino.
You say arrogance, I say arrogance.
Aggression.
Just to go back very quickly to a question that Robert McCowan asked. Robert, again, good friend of the show, a couple of weeks ago before we knew the draw, put us in the spot and says, how many points do you think we can take from the group? 24 points up for grabs across the 8 games. Just as a reminder, I think you said 12 at the time, Paddy. James, you were somewhere between 6 and 8. I think I landed on 11 based on absolutely nothing. So now we've got some information to hand. We know the players we've got. We know the teams we'll face. Do you want to revise your answers? Are you sticking with where you were at?
I go 10. I think 8 qualifies you, and I'll go 10.
10, so rounding up to 10 for you.
I'm sticking with 12. I feel, honestly, I think that we are looking at how we've started this season. As you mentioned, no goals conceded in the league, the one in the League Cup. There is still that little bit of complacency within that back line that I do think starts to calm down a little bit if we bring the new boys in and they hit the ground running. Just got to believe, haven't you? This is, we love what we do domestically, absolutely, but we've been crying out for something in Europe for a long time, and that's got to come at some point. So, yeah.
Why not now?
Why not now?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to stick with my 11 as well. I've based that on, I think, a few wins and a couple of draws, and I think Leipzig at home is the hardest home game. The others are winnable. You've got to target winning these games, and that's the mindset.
I agree with James with Club Brugge. I think they're a decent outfit, but again, a team that, yes, they're back there, but that Belgian league is so up and down. It's like one season, they're all blowing hot and cold.
Yeah.
And you'll have an exciting subplot in Arne Engels going back to the club that developed him. He'll be looking to make a point. Just last thing on this bit of chat, the 4-match package was confirmed today at £184, so breaking down at £46 a game. Again, I think it was Miff and Asim that I'd asked the question of what they thought yourself. Yeah. Is that about right, do you think?
I'm happy with that.
I think it's decent.
Yeah, they froze the prices for last season, so I'm happy there.
Fair enough. So that all kicks off, as I say, with that game against Bratislava. A couple of weeks' time, Wednesday, September 18th at Celtic Park, so not long to wait for that one. We're going to finish off the show with a modern-day Celtic hero. You've touched on him earlier on, but it's Jamesy Forrest. He's our second most decorated player, as I mentioned, on 24 trophies, just one behind Bobby Lennox. Over 100 goals for Celtic, over 100 assists for Celtic, and now, James, 500 appearances for Celtic. Your comments on that achievement?
Outstanding. He's going to end up a one-man club, or one club man rather. Despite this time last year, he could have been away, or was it January even?
January.
He was Cardiff with Turnbull.
Jeez, sliding doors moments in football.
And, without James's finish to the season, where would we have been? Really important goals, really important performances. I think now is my favourite kind of football that we've seen from James Forrest, because it's that experience. It was disgraceful he never played much in the Euros there.
Not at all, not one minute football.
Just exactly what Scotland would have needed, somebody that can retain possession. I think he's really matured into just such a considered player, a really intelligent player. I've been clear in my criticism of Jamesy through the years that I've always felt he played within himself. Yeah. I've always thought there was extra levels to his game that for whatever reason didn't come out. And now we're starting to see a completely different game, and we're getting real benefit from it.
It's great to see Paddy and the roar, the reception he got when he came on at Celtic Park. The announcer nailed it, just built it up, blah, blah, and welcome onto the park. Celtic making his 500th appearance. It's a big moment for James Forrest, and it's one that's really well deserved. So your own comments on him, Paddy, and I'll ask you for your favourite James Forrest moment.
Yeah, I think just like what James said, just what he's brought, just like what you've said in terms of the announcer when bringing him onto the stadium, it kind of and captured basically the dominance over this team for a long time, and I think that James Forrest has been a big part of that as well. He knows what it takes. Again, another guy that brings so much to the training pitch as well, the amount of players that are joining, and I've spoke about guys joining Celtic not knowing what it takes to win, not knowing what it takes to deal with the pressure of playing in Glasgow, and knowing that a 1 or a 2-0 victory could still get scrutinised. I think that there's a real place for these guys here, and I think James Forrest, Callum McGregor, we had it with Scott Brown as well. The guys, even I think Lustig was a big part in getting these guys into the team and getting them settled. He's done so much for us on the park, but he does an awful lot of it as well. He's been a great servant. For me, the one memory would have been a time actually, my wife and I on our honeymoon when we were in Rome. We're watching Celtic v Rosenborg in the Scholars Lounge. I had to fight to get the game on. I eventually managed to persuade the guy not to show a Man United pre-season friendly, and he decided, right, I'll give you the smallest TV in the room, but I was quite happy. He scores against Rosenborg, and just an important goal. I think we then went on to play Beersheva to qualify for the Champions League that night, and it was just those little moments, because you're kind of hoping we get through, and we were having no joy at all, and he just pops up with an absolute screamer. He was playing as a makeshift striker that night. Yeah, and it just goes back to what I'm saying about having your squad ready.
Yeah, 100%. James, your own moment. I was going to talk about, we've covered the Lazio game, the Olivier Ntcham Lazio game last week, and he actually scored a huge goal in that game as well, and it's forgotten about because Ntcham scored the winner. Yeah. But he's just popped up at different times. I should have mentioned in the intro piece there that he's also scored in every one of his 15, maybe 16 seasons now at Celtic, 15 anyway, which is just incredible. To have that level of consistency, and he's having this, call it an Indian summer if you like, but he's certainly just finding a new lease of life, which is great to see. But your own James Forrest highlight?
Appropriately enough, against them. So Celtic Rangers, April 2019. Musa opens the score with a lovely goal. Bruni gets Morelos sent off for being an idiot. Kent equalises, and then in the 86th minute, it's Jamesy pops up. Great ball from Edward. Funny enough, Jamesy set up Edward for his, and Edward set up Jamesy for his, and then that's it all done. And it was at that time when, as Rodgers was referencing last year, the Rangers are coming and all that kind of stuff. That was when you were getting a lot of noise. Bang, done, finished.
That's it. He's been there and seen a lot. He's if he was more outgoing, he'd have some great stories to tell. And I don't know if Jamesy Forrest will chat more when he hangs up the boots, but he's got so many experiences, ups and downs. It's not all been plain sailing for him personally or for the club during these times, but he's covered so much in his Celtic career. In terms of when he hit the first team, he's also got a whole number of years in the academy before that, and what it takes to make that breakthrough and eventually become a Celtic player. But he absolutely is and will go down as a modern Celtic great. And Miff will just be disappointed he's not here to wax lyrical about his favourite boy. My own big moment, and I know it was one that you were talking about, Paddy, was the late winner against Shakhtar Donetsk. Shakhtar Karagandhi. Celtic had lost the first leg 2-0 out there, and we come back to Celtic Park knowing that we needed a big performance. We got it to 2-0. I'm sure Chris Commons scored. Can't remember who else.
Sammy?
Maybe.
Aye.
And then we're getting to 80-something minutes, late 80 minutes, and Anthony Stokes does some brilliant stuff inside the box, cuts it back for James Forrest, who smashed it high into the net.
Great goal.
And it goes better. I think you've got Lenny running down trackside and all that kind of stuff. And it's just one of a number of big goals. So congratulations to James for making it 500 appearances for Celtic, and hopefully many more to come. Paddy, as we're starting to wrap things up, I'll come to you for your final comments for the week.
Yeah, been a great start to the season, and as I say, just really looking forward to seeing what we go and do in Europe this year. I think every fan has a spring in their step after yesterday, but also after seeing us finally act a bit more like a serious club. I think we want to see this continue. We do still need things to change, in my opinion. I still think we've got a bit of work to do there in terms of our structure, but I'm hopeful that this is the beginning of that, and I'm still going to be paying my Champions League ticket money. I'm still going to be paying my season ticket money, because this is what it's all about. No offence to you, James.
What a snidey dig at you.
Shots
but no, I think for me it's been a really good start to the season, and just hope we can just kick on.
James, I'll give you the right to reply and your final comments.
Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter. I'm not really a proper fan of Paddy,
No, I never said that.
It's implied. I think they've been so professional this first batch of fixtures. Good to get an international break. It's a good time for it. I think you don't want to stop your momentum, but you've got guys you want to embed into the system here, and those who aren't away, we'll get a bit of time with them in the training pitch with Rodgers, which is excellent. So yeah, we're sitting, what we joined top with Aberdeen kind of thing. Great to see them doing well after so long. So I hope that continues, and Rangers can battle for third place with Dundee United.
Yeah, currently fourth, so we'll see how that all plays out. So that wraps things up on the latest episode of the Celtic Exchange Weekly. Thanks to Paddy and James, and thanks to you for tuning in. We'll be back again next week with the weekly show, and remember to check out the celticexchange.supercast.com to help us bring you even more Celtic this season. But in the meantime, as always, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again soon.